Hey, it's Renita, and you're listening to The High EQ Founder, a podcast featuring real-life examples of emotional intelligence and how it makes you a more effective leader. Today, I'm speaking with Sarah Fleischer, co-founder and CEO of battery recycling startup tozero. With global lithium demand set to quadruple by 2030, Sarah and her team are transforming battery waste into high-purity raw materials to keep critical resources in the supply chain. We talked about making fast decisions based on first principles thinking and why she's willing to do a complete 180 when new data changes her worldview. The counterintuitive pricing move that defied industry norms and customers loved. Her two favorite phrases as CEO and how she learned the hard way to strip away assumptions before making critical decisions, and why she doesn't really believe in luck and how she capitalizes on opportunities that most people don't even see. Enjoy my conversation with Sarah. So, over the past 10 or 11 years, you've had such diverse business experience, from doing e-commerce with China, leading the winning team in SpaceX Hyperloop's pod competition, to advising the Luxembourg Space Agency, co-developing a €120 million space VC fund. And then 3 years ago, you were leading the commercial strategy at Forto, logistics technology unicorn, and you decided to launch tozero to tackle one of the critical bottlenecks in the energy transition. From what I understand, recovering critical metals from used batteries to feed back into the supply chain. But I'm curious, what was the catalyst to launch not only a deep tech startup, but such an ambitious one that requires CapEx, building factories, solving really hard chemical problems?
No, that's a very good question. I mean, you're definitely right. I went from e-commerce, luxury fashion, space to logistics, and now doing battery recycling. I'm a mechanical engineer by training myself. And I always knew I'm going to found again. It's my third company that I founded. So tozero is the third company, building from scratch, which is very thrilling. But as an entrepreneur, I always knew the third company has to be something that's tangible and really bring the world to a better place. And, back in my university times, my professor was teaching me that there's no way that EV cars are going to be sustainable. And that, I'm proving him wrong. Wait a minute, you can do recycling. It has not happened before. Doing proper lithium-ion battery recycling, really extracting lithium and graphite out, raw materials that is just dumped or burned away as of status quo and not really recovered, which is really stupid because you have to dig it all out of the ground in the most narrow places in the world and ship it to China to get processed and then turn it into batteries. Why don't you just take urban mines, so the urban waste, recycle it, extract the raw materials, and bring it back to a new life cycle? So really regenerating materials. And lucky enough, my co-founder invented a breakthrough. So Dr. Ksenia Milicevic-Neumann, it's a very long name. She's from RWTH Aachen. You could basically see it as Germany's MIT. This is a big compliment coming from the Technical University of Munich. We're probably the Stanfords of Germany. They're the MIT of Germany. And during her postdoc, she invented a technology where Nature published that no one has done it before to really extract the lithium with over 97% of recovery rate out of lithium-ion batteries. And that's like the moment where she called me and said, hey, I just invented something. No one is doing this in this industry. It's literally a breakthrough. Can you make money out of it? And that combination of like me wanting to really make an impact with my third company, something that's tangible. You really are disrupting a whole value chain and ecosystem and the supply chains here in the Western world where we don't have our hands on these critical raw materials. So that's a very long story of how we launched tozero. And of course, it helps to raise money and find investors that support you from the get-go. We raised over 14 million euros so far from great investors, and now we're 3.5 years in the company.
And you've made so much progress. But I'm curious, just to go back, how did she know to call you? Did you already have a connection?
Yeah, I always joke we both met in space. So I was working in the space agency of Luxembourg, where I
Okay.
set up the over 120 million euro VC fund from a government perspective. And I was back then supporting companies to raise money. I was helping them to get non-equity financing. That was my job, setting up the space ecosystem of Luxembourg. And they've done a great job. Like if you look at Luxembourg now, they have over 150 space ventures, probably maybe even towards 200, just starting off in 2019. So they've done a good job there. And Xenia, my co-founder, she was in one of those startups that got money in Luxembourg and was working there. And we met in one of these random networking events. And yes, maybe after a bottle of wine, we both signed on the napkin that one day we're going to found a company together. And this was 3 years prior to starting the company. So we've always kept in touch. Life moved on. We both left space, and now we decided to fix planet Earth because it's not that cool to live on Mars or Moon.
I agree. So that's such a great example of the serendipity, right? You were traveling in the same circles. The timing wasn't quite right, but you made that key connection. You saw that you had the same general vision. And then when the time and the technology was there, it made sense. Oh, what a story.
Definitely. So it was definitely not planned from the get-go, but keeping the right contacts, making the right contacts, and I was blessed that she called me to tell me about the breakthrough, and we literally sat down 6 months to really write down the business plan and to understand the competitors. There were back then multi-billion backed companies in the US. There were the legends, or I call them the dinosaurs here in the European space, like the BASFs of the world,
Right.
that were looking in battery recycling, but not having progressed that far. And as a founder, you're always, you're very self-confident and some sort of naive, where you're like, I'm going to beat everybody. And it's pretty cool to see that tozero is doing a really good job actually doing that.
Yeah.
We were the first in Europe that produced recycled lithium to the market. And now we're doing other very great things, bringing graphite back into batteries. No one has ever done that before from that industrial scale that we're currently being active on.
Yeah, so a lot of firsts. And also, I'll point out 2 female founders, which is very
Oh, yeah.
unusual.
Yeah. Deep tech, hardware,
Yeah.
setting up plants as 2 female founders. I don't know that many other constellations out there, or actually none that just has 2 female founders.
Yeah. So 3.5 years isn't that long, and you're already building your first plant. So I'm curious about some of the deflection points along the way. I think that would be really helpful for other founders to hear some of the key decisions you had, and how you made them. So maybe you could choose one that you think might be particularly instructive.
Oh, wow. This is a very difficult question because you really end up as a founder making it seems like 100 decisions per day.
I'm sure.
And you never know which decision actually brought you to the progress. I think like the beautiful recipe that Xin and I always follow, me and my co-founder, and we always encourage the team to do it, is once you come to a decision, and you should try to come to a decision fast, because taking time to come to a decision is also making a decision, and that usually hurts the company quite a lot too, especially in a very fast-paced startup. So every day cost a company a lot of money, and you're running through a sprint. Like if you just imagine you're running a marathon on a sprint level, how often do you want to take a break until you keep sprinting? So we really tend to try to understand the fundamentals for any situations, first principle thinking. I know a lot of people talk about it, but I really like to go deep. So if someone is presenting me a topic and I want to understand the whys, I probably ask 5-10 times why, to really get the root cause, to have a better world understanding. And depending on that world understanding, based on all these information and data points, it's quite easy for me to make a decision based on that world understanding. Now, if tomorrow I get a new information, that world understanding changes. And maybe it can also be that I completely flip and make 180 degrees decision making. the first, like your first 2 months, you hate working with me because it could always be like, oh yes, I got a decision with Sarah, we came to a conclusion. The next day, Sarah just flipped and said, hey, let's go left instead of right.
Can you give an example of that, just to understand at what level that you're making those decisions?
For example, if my one of my colleagues is gonna listen to this, he's gonna laugh, because that was quite a brain twist from his side. A very good example is pricing. For example, pricing of commodities. Back in the days, we really believed that sustainable or recycled, let's say lithium, should be priced much higher than any other lithium that comes from China, right? It's made from heart and sweat, made in Munich, Germany. It's recycled. You can lower your carbon footprint, and so on and so forth. And it was really a big thing. This green premium on a commodity. It's just why not? It's being done in green steels. It's being done in other commodities or in other products. I don't know how these things happen, but when you're in front of the whiteboard, like you're just trying to put a lot of information on your worldview on this whiteboard. And this colleague was always trying to tell me, hey, Sarah, customers don't want to pay more, right? Like, why are you pushing us to put another 20% on top? Like, customers, they just don't want to pay more. It's like they want to save money. Commodities are already volatile. The prices go up and down. Even if you Google now the prices of lithium, it went up almost doubling in the last 2 months and now dropped again. So it's like it's super volatile. And then it clicked. I'm like, wait a minute. So customers don't want to pay that much. They hate that it's volatile. What if we offer half price, but give us the money today for production in 2 years?
Ooh. Yes.
And my colleague was like, oh no, brain fuck. I just got used to the green premium, and now you're telling me half price and get a down payment for customers. I'm like, yeah, go for it. Try it. And what I always say is, like, as long as you don't get a no, you haven't tried hard enough. So in my brain, if I haven't heard the no once or twice or 3 times, it's a yes in my head. My worldview, it's like, you can do it. It makes sense. So it's usually based on data and information and understanding the fundamentals. I create a worldview, and I move in that world. And that helps me make decisions.
That's a perfect example, because actually a lot of founders, it's hard for them to change their mind because they don't like to look unreliable. So not only did you change your mind, you did a total 180 from charging a premium to discount, but with an interesting twist, which is the upfront payment, which could be very valuable for your cash flow, right?
Exactly. And the customer's happy because I removed the volatility. Stable price.
Yes.
Let's go.
A couple win-wins there.
And the cool thing is, I can say now it's working. It worked. So that's maybe the cool side of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great story. And even if it didn't, because I heard you say try it. So it sounds like your mentality is, let's experiment. Let's try something,
yes.
See if it works.
Yeah.
And just because it doesn't work because they say no one time doesn't mean it's not going to work with a different customer or a little bit later.
Yeah, I think I have 2 famous sentences in my company. The first one is, let's try it. And the second one is, let's start from scratch. So these are the 2 sentences I say quite often.
And let's start from scratch means let's erase everything we've done already.
Yeah.
Start over.
It's usually, it happens when I don't get into my root cause with my whys. Like, there's a topic that we're discussing and you're already presenting me an outcome, but I don't understand the argumentation. I'm like, okay, it's not understandable. Let's start from scratch. Let's start from square one. What information do we have? And what do we make out of that information to find a solution? So it could be that some of the colleagues, if they've worked on a topic for a few weeks, that's why I always tell them, come to me earlier. So you don't end up working on some topics that I just tell you, hey, do this from scratch.
Yeah. And you also get rid of some of the assumptions and biases that got built in unintentionally.
Yes, exactly. For example, like my founder's associate's a very close person in the company that works with me on a daily basis. Um, he's working on HQ office space.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of long time planning. It costs a lot of money. Um, and although there are so many other more important things to do, and he's already presenting some directions and so on and so forth, and I just halt him. It's like, what was the beginning reason why we're even doing this?
Right.
And then he halted. It's like, oh, good question. I forgot. I don't know.
How often does that happen?
Oh, very often, very often.
Yeah.
I like it's like I love to ask, whatever people are presenting is like, why are we doing this? And if they don't have that answer, I would be like, okay, I don't need to make a decision because we don't even know why we're doing this. Or, sometimes I even question KPIs. It seems like, founders set the KPIs or company goals. We're now in January and, you question, why are we fighting for this KPI? And everybody's so
Yeah.
confused because they're like, oh, we just went for it, but actually we also don't know why we're fighting for this KPI. I'm like, okay, let's do this homework.
Yep.
I want you guys to understand why are you producing this many tons of lithium in this quarter? What is the purpose? Like, what's the effect of that? What are we trying to de-risk? And if you cannot explain that, all of this is kind of like for nothing, right? So
Yeah.
you're not fighting for the right thing.
Questioning some of those basic assumptions that everybody's operating on, running full speed, they kind of forgot, why did we decide to go in this direction?
Yeah. So I think people are very often confused probably in a good way, probably in an annoyed way, because I make them start from scratch. But I like to operate that way.
Yeah, and I think that's your role as the founder, right? You're the one with the eye on the North Star. Yeah. So I imagine that there's been some setbacks because you explained we've raised money, we're building a plant, but I'm sure there were some hiccups or obstacles along the way. Is there one in particular you'd like to share that's given you some valuable learning lessons?
Like a particular setback?
Setback, maybe a mistake, a quote unquote failure.
Wow, so many. That's a
Oh,
that's a that's a difficult one. Like I think there are many setbacks that you could talk about. One topic that is always in my head is people. Me as a CEO and founder of the company, I spend a lot of time with how do you grow the tree, which is the startup, people wise, right? How much do you nourish it? When you see a leaf turning yellow or dying, when do you rip it off to help the tree to not waste
mm,
resources on dying leaves? So how do you take care of a plant, a tree, which is more or less like your team? And you want to go somewhere. You want to go up very high and have a very stable and strong trunk. Um,
mhm.
and People topics are always really big. And I think one of the worst mistakes we've done, I think you understand by now how my operational model works. I base all decision making on data points and I create my worldview. Now, there was one time point, this was in the very early beginning of the company. We already produced the first batches of lithium. We already delivered to customer. Fantastic, everything fantastic. They were sampled correctly, and the information was you don't need to purify the lithium. The customers are happy with the quality as it was recovered. And now, as you always do as a company, you always go in this up and down cycles, having money in your bank account. So there was a point where we had to lay off people to just
Mm,
save money budget wise. Now, based on that information, we laid off the purification team. And only a few months later, we realized that information was not true. So, yes, it was a setback. It was a mistake based on the wrong information you had in your time. So the learning now is, that's why I go deeper, deeper, deeper. I really torture people to really understand, do we have the right data? And I make the judgment, okay, do I think I have the right data versus gut feeling data, which is not really 100%. You don't take those as 100% clarity for your worldview. So painful learning for the
Oh,
company.
very painful, yeah. So if I can ask, so was the quote unquote lesson or mistake that you didn't dig deep enough? You didn't ask the whys, you didn't really probe the logic of the decision around the data?
That's a very fair question. I think we could have done the homework and not and that's what I do now. Like, go the layers deeper, really see who made that judgment of the data,
Mm-hmm.
who qualified the data, and backtrack it. Was it an intern? Was it a seniority? Who's accountable? Who's really responsible for data points? So in my head, I have that system like, okay, this data should be quite accurate, or here I need to ask from 5 different angles if that data is
Yes.
correct or not. Of course, you never know 100% for sure if it's correct or not, but just going through that route, was this just a rumor? Was this just a gossip? Or is it really an accurate data point? Where's the proof? Of course, I don't do this for every single data points, but just the relevant ones where I base my bigger decisions.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, wrong data is painful.
Yeah. And one thing I've seen with my clients is often you're always in such a hurry, right? You have so much to do, you want to move fast, and just the uncertainty of not making a decision. So I see sometimes they rush to make decisions just to
Mm.
make a decision. And it takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of discipline to really slow down and really take the
Start
proper
from
amount of
scratch.
time. Yep, yep. And test your assumptions, question all the inflection points that got you to where you are, just like you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, where the data came from. It takes a lot of fortitude, I think, just mentally.
Yeah, and I think these painful learnings help you to just remember to not do them again.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. Um, and then finally, let's talk about luck. So there's quote unquote good luck, bad luck. But what I like to talk about is the return on luck and what you did with what happened. And typically it's what people would call bad luck. And yet it turned out to really work in their favor at a certain point. But I'm curious if you have a return on luck story you'd like to share.
It's a very interesting concept, return of luck. I usually don't talk too much around luck. I talk about
Mm,
opportunities. Yeah, so in my mental framework, it's all about opportunities. And from quite early on, I always try to understand when there's an opportunity in front of me to actually recognize it and taking the opportunity. So what I've seen with a lot of people is they don't even recognize there is an opportunity.
mm,
And even once they see it, they don't want to take it because it's for whatever reason. And I think like I'm more wired. I see opportunities everywhere. You could give me the most horrible story or the most horrible setback, and I'll be like, great, where do we go from here? Right? Okay, this is the new status quo. We can go straight, left, backwards, right. Like any drastic change in your life, people would say, hey, that's a bad luck. But
mm.
on the other side, it's a new start of a new chapter, which is a luck, right? It's an opportunity. Um, the principles I always follow is remembering that you always see a person twice. So behave, be nice to people. Like maybe this person angers you because of a bad situation, but you might ask for a favor. A very good one I
You
tell
never
my young
know.
people. Yeah, exactly. The young guys in my company. Look, even as a founder, the investors do ref checks of my former employer years back. And like how you behave leaving a company determines if you can use that relationship for your future luck, right?
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of times where people, leave a company in the worst manner. Well, guess what? I'm not going to give a good reference. Do you want a good reference for your future chapter? Yes or no? So I always like to basically behave in a way where I believe like whatever comes around goes around. Okay, we drifted a little bit, but
No, it sounds like you're optimizing for opportunity, because if you shut the door when you leave a company, then it's really hard to open that door again. But if you can leave on good terms, you just never know where
you can
you might cross
re-enter the
paths.
door. Exactly. Don't burn down ties, even though emotionally you would want to. It's not worth it.
Mm.
It's worth even more to keep the doors green, right? Like to keep them intact. And I always find myself talking to people I've met years ago just to get advice, to ask for help. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I would have burned all my ties in the past. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the number one rule, thinking about this whole topic around opportunities. Yes, one, recognizing and taking an opportunity, but realizing that it's all people's business, and the people that you deal with enable you to these opportunities, which is quite interesting to think about. Yeah.
Yes, I really love how you've reframed this question, because you're saying it's about opportunity and maximizing or optimizing for opportunity for your future self, basically. So how can you set up this current opportunity that's in front of you to bear the most fruit in the future? Beautiful. Yeah. And it's a way of just making the most of whatever's in front of you. And I also like what you said about emotional intelligence, because, it is so tempting sometimes just to say what's on your mind if things have gone sour, and yet it's never worth it. Is that something that's come sort of naturally to you, this sense of emotional intelligence? Is it something you've focused on developing?
No, I think it's like my exposure in my different career experiences. I've done
Mm-hmm.
lots of internships in large corporates back as a student. I worked in the major German corporates in the automotive world. I worked in a government setting, right? The space agency and government setting. And you just see how professional elites or professional top leaders behave. So I've learned a lot from them, like looking at the wise, successful people.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean effective in terms of their
Yeah,
relationships?
exactly. How they treat people, and people that have not been treated well, how they bounce back.
Oh.
How do you react in those situations, right? It's really interesting in negotiations when someone is bullying you or aggressive to you, just staying calm and winning the negotiations.
Uh-huh.
So so I've seen a lot in that regard in my past career experiences, and that helped me tremendously as of today, in negotiations, in commercial activities, in fundraising, right?
Yeah, I bet that was very helpful just to have all these role models in these different domains. Because a lot of founders, if they start a company when they're young, they don't have that. So we can't underestimate how important it is to see some of this behavior in action and to see the impact of it. Because you saw that, right? You saw what
Yeah,
happened when they acted one way or if they acted a
yeah.
different way.
I've seen quite many different things, yeah, especially in government setting, yeah. And then to understand who has which leverage actually, and who is just
Mm.
behaving emotionally. It's quite interesting to see.
Wow. That was very fortunate to have that education and preparation for this current
Yeah.
venture. Well, thank you so much. I really love where you helped us take this conversation.
We went with the flow.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. All right. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to the High EQ Founder. If you enjoyed this conversation, why not share it with a fellow founder? And if you want more strategies for leveling up as a leader, sign up for the High EQ Founder Playbook on Substack. Link in the show notes. Until next time, remember, whoever evolves faster wins.